While the cheapest way to go to Antarctica is on a regular cruise line and ship sailing past the Antarctic Peninsula as part of a South American itinerary, there is a huge catch, making it way less fulfilling. These cruises only sail through the region. You will not step on the seventh continent, nor will you experience landings or zodiac rides to get close to penguins, seals, birds, glaciers, explore ancient whaling stations, explorer huts, or visit Antarctic research stations. You may be lucky enough to see whales from the ship, but mostly you'll just be sailing past the landscapes. For a true Antarctic experience, an expedition cruise is the way to go. They will do all of that stuff and be led by an expedition team of scientists, historians, geologists, and marine biologists who give talks and will escort you on the zodiacs and when you do the landings. However, as the cost of these cruises can be prohibitive to most, I asked my friend Martin Johnson, who runs Polar Routes, a dedicated Antarctic and Arctic travel agency, to help me identify the most budget-friendly ways to get there. Welcome aboard. I'm Gary Bembridge, and here's what I discovered. Plus, by the way, Martin and I have a specially created document with a comprehensive list of lines, prices, and options for you to download. More on that later, because first, I want to kick off with 6 key tips and steps on how to find and do an expedition cruise to polar regions without breaking the bank. First, go at cheaper times of the year because they do exist. October, November, the start of the season, and March, the end of the season, tend to be the cheapest times to go. Both are actually, though, my favorite times to go for the following reasons. Now, early in the season, which is October and November, it means pristine, snow-covered landscapes, lots of floating ice and icebergs as the summer thaw starts. And because it's the start of the breeding season, there's a lot of and very frisky wildlife on the beaches and busy and active penguins all over. Whales are also returning. At the end of the season in March, there are great sunsets, there's loads of whales, there's still penguins and seals, though they tend to be fewer in numbers. You will also start to see floating pancake ice as the sea begins to refreeze. So both are fantastic. However, timing is everything when you book too. Surprisingly, there are several great times to book during the year. One of the very best is when the lines launch their new seasons, which will be up to 2 years ahead. Now, they usually launch them about the autumn, and that's when you're going to get the best prices possible. For example, I booked a Ponant Antarctic Rossi expedition cruise the week it was launched, and I got 30% off, plus a low, only 15% solar supplement. That deal soon disappeared in the days that followed. Another good time to look for deals is January and February, known as wave season. It's a busy booking period, and the lines do have to have sharp deals to compete against the other lines trying to get bookings at this time. It's also worth looking at Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals. Some lines do offer those, but not as many as classic lines. One tip that I did not expect that Martin told me is that summer can be a good time to look to book, because he said, and I quote, "Booking polar cruises when it's hot and sunny is not natural for most, and therefore sales for all lines tend to be slower and they're keener to secure any inquiries." So it's worth looking then. Last minute deals, by the way, are way less common for expedition cruises because people are planning way ahead due to costs and save up. Availability is fairly limited, but they are possible. However, watch out, because last minute flight costs could wipe out any savings you get from booking your cruises earlier. So how do you stay on top of all of those options and not miss out? Do what I do and sign up for specialist polar cruise travel agent email newsletters, like for example the one from Polar Routes, as well as those for any expedition cruise lines that appeal to you, because those are where you're going to see deals announced. That's how I found out about Ponant, for example. Next, you need to focus on where you go. To have an incredible experience, but at a more manageable cost, I recommend focusing on the most classic itinerary. This is the Antarctic Peninsula and South Shetlands route, usually lasting 10 nights and sailing from Shire. It is the most affordable option because it has fewer days than many other itineraries, and as all lines do this route, there is more choice, more competition, and more budget options. Although they are incredible, I recommend skipping the longer and so way more expensive Falklands and South Georgia itineraries because these are around 3 weeks long. I also recommend skipping the Antarctic bridge options where you fly over Drake Passage and join the ship in the region. because the flights make them quite a big premium. Also, skip the subarctic islands and southern Antarctica, the Ross Sea itineraries from New Zealand, because they're also long, about 3 weeks. There's very few options and they cost a lot of money. With those general tips for finding polar expedition cruises in mind, I want to turn attention to specifics on finding the right line and the right cabin within a budget. The good news is there are many options, many more than I'd appreciated, as I'd fallen into the trap of thinking mostly of lines familiar to me from regular cruising. So things like the expedition wings of lines like Silversea, Seabourn and Viking. However, there are 21 expedition lines that Martin recommends considering, and he split them into 4 categories: budget, premium, luxury and ultra luxury. All of these are listed in that document we've developed, along with more information on each, including things like fare inclusions, the size of the expedition team and entry-level pricing. I'm going to give you a download link for that at the end of this. However, before getting into the lines in each category, I must warn you that even budget expedition cruising is unfortunately still pretty costly. Polar expeditions will cost at least $600. It's about £480 per person per day. So you're looking at a minimum of $6,000, £4,800 for a standard 10-day cruise. And fares can go up to 4 or 5 times that based on the cruise line. But remember, that price includes many things that regular cruises do not: all landings and excursions, talks, a 15 to 20 person expedition team, sometimes some of the gear you need, and so on. In our expedition lines document, you will see budget lines actually include several single ship or small fleets, and some of the smallest expedition ships, including, surprisingly, an 8-person sailing ship. Budget lines include Antarctica, G Adventures, Oceanwide and Quixote, and fares are from about $600 per person per day. Next up are the premium lines like AE Expeditions, Albatross, Antarctica 21, Heritage HX, which is Hurtigruten, Lindblad National Geographic, Polar Latitudes and Quark, with fares from about $800 per person per day. Then there are the luxury lines like Atlas Ocean, Hapag-Lloyd, Swan Hellenic and Viking. Fares for these are about $1,000 per person per day. At the top of the pile from a luxurious point of view are the ultra luxury lines like Ponant, Seabourn, Silversea and Scenic. The fares here start from around $1,200 per person per day. But even once you choose the best category of line to make your expedition cruise meet your budget, there are some tricks and tips of cabins that I can give you to help your budget. First, many budget lines have cabins for up to 4 people of the same sex to share, which can significantly lower the fare if you're happy to share. Some of the premium lines also offer sharing options, details in that document. Next, focus on older ships within a fleet because they can also be cheaper. For example, Quark's older ships, World Explorer and Ocean Explorer, are quite a bit less expensive than the newer Ultramarine ship. Similarly, Silversea's older ships, Silver Cloud and Silver Wind, actually have ocean view cabins, while their newer Silver Endeavour only has more costly balcony cabins and up, which of course cost way more. There is another booking option that could drive down costs that you should consider. It's one that very few people think of, and that is to look for groups and group discounts, as they can be below any advertised rate that I've spoken about. For example, Polar Routes offer hosted departures on some lines and sailings. These have lower fares, but also have group perks like extra onboard credit, complimentary dinners in special ed restaurants, cocktail parties, captain's dinner, behind-the-scenes tours, and all of these are hosted by a member of his team. So look out for those, and of course others that similar agencies may be offering. Friends of mine have also been on a group organized by the University Alumni Society. They had a discounted rate. So look out for other groups that you may be linked to that may offer those too. Or you could actually organize your own group too. Now, Martin told me that Polar Routes can often negotiate discounts with cruise lines if you have 5 or 6 people wanting to book the same sailing. And if you can arrange a larger group, say 12 or more, you can often not only get discounts, but often a free berth or 2. Now, some lines, it needs to be 16 people or more before lines can offer that. So of course, you could look at forming some sort of group. Of course, you can approach the line direct to if you want to arrange a group and not work through a travel agent like Polar Routes. Exploring Antarctica on an expedition cruise is, as you're hearing, pretty costly, but it can be done without totally breaking the bank with careful planning and using these tips. Now, to get that download with all the 21 lines, go to tipsfortravelers.com/polar and join me over in this video where I show you what day by day is like cruising Antarctica to get you even more excited. See you over there.